Lou here. In the world of anime, one thing I think we all talk about now and then is English dubs. Now, normally, English dubs are basically a dub-over of the original anime in order to reach a broader appeal for those who don't or can't read subtitles for whatever reason. However, now and then, there comes English dubs that are so bad that it completely ruins the way you could experience the original anime in the first place. These are the worst English dubs. Fair warning, by the way, that I won't be able to show a lot of the anime I'm talking about, either due to heavy copyright of the series or not being safe enough for YouTube, so I apologize for that in advance. Now, English dubs are subjective from the beginning. You have people who hate all dubs because they believe the only way you can experience the anime is if you read the subtitles. And then you have people like me who often prefer English dubs. That said, I will not include dubs people think are bad just because fans are too hardcore about the purity of the original anime. This will include dubs like JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, Way of the House Husband, and Free. These are either great dubs or fine dubs, and I think it's just silly to say it's bad solely because it's an English dub. The way this video will work is that scripting, translation, voice acting, and voice acting direction will be taken into account in this video. The further we go into this video, the worse the dubs. With all that explained, let's get started. Petshop of Horrors. This anime series is just super underrated, by the way, and honestly incredible, so I highly recommend everyone check it out. But this anime was given an English dub. The English dub was done by Urban Vision, who are known for distributing anime starting in 1996 and closing their doors for good in 2016. Now, they apparently were the original distributors of Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust and Wicked City, but their distribution expired at one point once both films were distributed out on DVD starting in 2000. Although I don't know the director of this dub and the process behind it, the dub would release on VHS in March of 2000, the success obviously being a failure. Anime like this around this time was pretty much what you would have found at a local VHS rental store, or you were living in a major city with a little Tokyo-esque district. The dub is pretty fucking bad, not the script. The script is actually pretty good, but it's the acting and casting that just isn't good. Now, to explain the story a bit, the anime is about a pet shop owner in New York City's Chinatown named Count D, who sells exotic and often illegal animals on the black market. That alone causes trouble, but he actually sells supernatural animals to special people, and each animal is supposed to give some sort of lesson or help towards the new owner of said pet. As they're supernatural, though, he can disguise them in humanoid forms, or they're creatures like mermaids and gorgons. Wanting to crack down on the sale of exotic animals and believing there is drug trafficking going on, Leon Orcott is a New York rookie detective who comes in to investigate and someday try to bust Count D. However, each time he begins to realize that the supernatural actually do exist, and this is kind of something out of Leon's hands when, you know, there isn't actually a US law about not owning a mermaid in your swimming pool. With that said, it's obvious the voice acting needs to be pretty well directed here. Leon is supposed to be that of a rookie detective cop you'd see from a late 80s film who learns about the side he's busting. The voice acting is supposed to be a split between carefree and serious as hell. With that said, the voice actor chosen for Leon is honestly terrible. He's overacting and yet has no energy at the same time. This was a common form of acting in 90s anime, of course. This was a form of acting that almost no one was familiar with yet, so a lot of people were quite literally the staff around the building. Hell, some studios apparently still do that, and trust me, we'll get to some of those other studios that are honestly worse. As for Count D, he's actually very good at voice acting, unlike Leon's voice actor, whose voice actor is uncredited as far as I could tell in my research. Count D's actually went on to continue voice acting and was recently in Seven Deadly Sins, so acting-wise, he's not bad. Except it's just that his voice doesn't really fit Count D. It's too deep and frankly just kind of comes across too shady when D is a character meant to be incredibly inviting. He's extremely polite and gentle, hence why so many people are willing to trust him when he gives them a fucking flaming horse in the body of a child. As for extra voice actors, sometimes they do alright, and then there are other times where they give the completely wrong emotion for the scene they're displaying. Like, someone will think they have their daughter reborn and is like rightfully shocked, but the dub is kind of acting just mildly surprised. This is one of those where I really do wish it had a redub or something, because the script wasn't bad. The acting was just really gosh awful and a victim of 90s anime dubs. Voltron, or Go Lion. While we all know Voltron nowadays as the one show from Netflix that everyone on Tumblr was frothing at the mouth over so badly you'd think we were gonna have Homestuck levels of obnoxious, disrespectful fanbase. It was originally an anime series done by Toei that released on March 4th, 1981 to some pretty good success in Japan. Mecha anime really took off around the 80s in Japan thanks to Mobile Suit Gundam in 1979, so Voltron was sort of made to capitalize off this new growing trend of mecha anime dominating younger audiences of the shonen genre that decade. I'm assuming somewhere after the success of Voltron, because it did so well in toy sales, because Toei Animation really can't flop toy deals apparently, World Events Productions picked up the rights to distribute the anime in the United States. The voice acting for this one is a whole new level of bad. We're talking 4Kids before 4Kids levels of bad and hilarious voice acting at the time. First is that there is a lot of ad-libbing within this dub. I should also add that, like, everyone's names were changed. Obvious, because back in the day, apparently American localization teams at the time thought that Japanese names weren't appealing to a Western demographic. It's stupid, and I hate it, but oh well. So the original names were changed, but I'll still be using the dub names solely because the dub names became more popular and were adapted into the Netflix series as well, except for Shiro, who got to keep his original name in the Netflix version, because he's known as Sven in this particular dub. This dub, to be honest, I don't even know where to begin. So, like, for some reason, Shiro became Sven, who is from Sweden or something, and now has a ridiculously bad Scandinavian accent. Every time he opens his mouth, I legit can't help but laugh because it's just so bad and just... why? Was this some way to have diversity by making him the foreign one? I legit don't know. Shiro also dies in the original Voltron and is replaced by his younger brother Ryo. In the English dub, his death was completely censored and they just changed it to say he went in a coma from his injuries and came back. Any scene where characters are crying and showing genuine emotion are replaced with voice acting that is the exact opposite of the emotion required. A character will be crying and relieved to see the other characters are alive, while in the dub he sounds upset going like, "Where were you two knuckleheads?" Yes, the voice acting sounds like that and it hurts my soul. While this was the 80s, so censoring blood was impossible. The dub had to do all the work to redo the scenes and censor the dark tones. The Earth is actually completely destroyed in the original version, whereas in the dub, there is a lot of added dialogue discussing how this is not Earth, but a totally different planet, and everyone made it out safely. Another major issue with the dub is the lip syncing does not match at all. You'll often see characters talk when their mouths aren't moving, and dialogue was mixed to be slightly off to a point where you almost think you're watching an out-of-sync distribution or something. Scripting-wise, some parts weren't terrible. It did kind of follow the main story, even though it's censored and cut a lot of darker moments and key details. So I suppose if you were a kid in the 80s, then maybe this wasn't bad. However, as an English dub, specifically intended for a younger audience that are now much more high quality and far more accurate than the original version in today's world, this is honestly fucking awful by today's comparison. It's also overacted all to hell, but I mean, I guess it's kind of the staple of voice acting from the 80s in general. I mean, we've all seen how overacted He-Man and other 80s cartoons were. Overall, it's really bad, but damn, do you get a good laugh watching a clip compilation. Bible Black. Now, this is an obvious choice. The dub has been used for memes for about 2 decades at this point. We know how bad it is. But come on, we've got to talk about how bad it is in a video about bad English dubs. Okay, so hentai getting an English dub is not only extremely rare, but something very new to me. Now don't ask why hentai dubs are super rare. I can only assume it's solely due to the oversaturation to the point where no hentai is gonna be like DBC of spicy stuff levels of popularity, so making an English dub is probably pretty rare in the industry to me. In comes Bible Black though, a hentai from 2001 licensed by Media Blasters. At least according to my anime list. Gonna be honest, finding more information about the dub was pretty much impossible. All I kept getting was, very spicy websites, if you catch my drift, and my anime list pages for spin-offs and other anime with keywords. I assume this dub wasn't done in the US or Canada though, because of the stilted English and European accents of the voice actors themselves. Some of them anyway, who the hell knows, because this dub feels like a goddamn mystery to me. As for the acting itself, it's really bad. If you guys have ever seen, adult video acting, picture that, but everyone sounds like somebody's aunt or grandma because of how old they are. Which is kinda weird, because these are pretty young characters. By that, I mean they're high schoolers, and that's gross to choke your chick into a high schooler, but you know how the anime community is about that. I'll at least give the English dub credit for aging them up, I think. Just because, like, the professor lines threw me off about the teacher because, like, I'm pretty sure a professor wouldn't be at a fucking high school. But I could be wrong too. Not only is the dialogue really stilted, poorly acted, and overall any other descriptor you can give to a bad English dub, but the script was changed a bit in a lot of non-story dialogue. Even though Bible Black doesn't really have a story technically, it's just some guy who gets roped into a sex-crazed satanic cult, so like, in terms of hentai, this is the least craziest plot in existence, and that's saying a lot when the cis female teacher had a you-know-what for some reason. Forgive me for the censored wording here. YouTube tends to get pretty picky on videos with too many accurate descriptors, so I'm trying to tread lightly on this part. Anyway, the actual spicy times in particular had dialogue heavily changed to sound more like a really shitty adult video. I noticed the original dialogue and scenes were a little more eloquent, at least what the girls were saying, what they wanted, and how they were feeling. Not to say it was completely filled with anything romantic, it was just a bit more subtle compared to the dub. Whereas in the dub, this is pretty much nothing but dirty talk. I don't know if that's something Western audiences choke their chicken to a little faster, but I think it feels a little more natural for characters to be a little more subtle and gentle compared to shit like, well, me with your big because I'm a dirty. Cause like, I'm pretty sure no one outside of adult videos and fan fictions actually say that in the heat of the moment 9 out of 10 times, but I could be wrong. Another quick note is that I noticed a lot of instances where the dialogue was kind of off or the actor wasn't following the lip flaps. Honestly, I would not be surprised if the actors weren't actually shown the anime in the recording booth to try and match the lip flaps, because it definitely sounds like they didn't do that. Overall, the dub is very, very bad, but it's also so bad that it's honestly pretty funny in some places. Definitely not for the spicy stuff though, that was just cringy. Before we get to the end though, here are some honorable mentions, or I guess in this case dishonorable mentions. Clannad. It's weird, because there are a lot of really talented voice actors in Clannad. Lucy Christian, David Mentraga, and Greg Aris, and more. Somehow this dub comes off completely underwhelming, not to mention some of the casting choices were really poor. Celine Black Shelley was a really ill fit for Kyo. Kara Greenberg didn't fit Sanae at all, and a lot of background characters didn't work at all. What's weird to me is that, like, the script itself is really solid, but it's like everyone involved is really disinterested in this anime, though it's only in honorable mentions because it does get way better in After Story. Like, the scene with Ushio and Tomoya are pretty damn good in the dub, so maybe it was just everyone finding awkward footing in the original Clannad. The Sentai Filmworks dub of Kakegurui. Now, the Netflix dub of Kakegurui was done by Bang Zoom. Great, amazing, extremely accurate. The Sentai Filmworks version? Whoo boy! The thing that confuses me about this dub's existence is that apparently this is the dub used in the DVD sales, because apparently Sentai Filmworks has the physical distribution license while Netflix has the digital distribution license, I think? So like, Sentai Filmworks couldn't afford the dubcast fees to port the dub onto the DVD, so they made their own because it was cheaper, and like, oh boy, is it bad. The dialogue itself is heavily changed from the original characters, the cast chosen for their perspectives is poor, the acting direction is really bad, and the acting feels more like those slightly professional fan dubs done back in the day on YouTube. It's not terrible, but like, it needs so much work it's not even funny. Considering not many people have access to this dub because people tend to watch the Netflix version of this dub, it's in honorable mentions because luckily, 9 out of 10 people don't know this dub exists. Dramatical Murder. I promise this entire honorable mentions list wasn't meant to be a bash on Sentai Filmworks because they honestly do put out some good or decent dubs sometimes. It's just like, oh boy, some of these dubs are really bad. Dramatical Murder's editing is good. The lips match up with the audio, but the biggest issue comes in both the scripting and voice cast. A lot of lines are ad-libbed in an attempt to kinda give a ghost story style dub, which would normally be fine for any other anime, but considering Dramatical Murder was a reasonably popular property to a point where it received attention up until 2020, this was a very bad move. To make it worse, the role of Alba, a character whose entire gimmick is that he has a really sweet, alluring voice, was given to a guy who was honestly terrible. I'm sure nowadays he's a better voice actor, especially now that he's apparently a major supporting role in Haikyuu, but damn, this role was just a bad look. Adding on to that, there was a lot of bro dialogue to replace the more actual romantic scenes. Considering this is a yaoi visual novel adaptation, that's like if Junjo Romantica had an English dub, and the characters started calling each other homies the second the tall guy slams the non-consenting little guy into the wall. Overall, this dub is just embarrassing for everyone involved. I've seen a lot of bad dubs in my day, but this one legitimately makes me feel embarrassed for every voice actor involved. Dragon Maid. Now, the acting and editing isn't really bad. What's bad about the Dragon Maid dub, at least in the first season, is the script. A lot of jokes were vocally cut, as well as weird political jokes that weren't in the original, and dialogue hinting at Kobayashi and Toru's romantic feelings for each other were cut. Particularly the character Quetzalcoatl had her entire character personality changed from a dumb airhead who doesn't understand humans don't get naked all the time, to an SJW who doesn't think her boobs should be oppressed. This was apparently done by her voice actress in order to make the dub more palatable, as she said. Except, I don't think anyone takes offense to an airheaded female character. If anything, from my experience, that's a beloved character trope because it's adorable. Some of the cast was also a little stiff. I totally didn't agree with it either. I thought Jad Sackton as Kana was just a little too old, but at the same time, I feel like that's probably just me being picky. Overall, acting and scripting wise, it's not bad, but what makes it bad is the gosh-awful changes to the script as part of Funimation's weird policy over romantic comedy anime from this point forward, where they make these really weird SJW-esque script changes that don't really make sense. Like, before I get to number 1, there's a scene in Kaguya-sama Love is War, where in the Funimation subtitles, a character tells our main character, "Hey, are you practicing social distancing?" When, like, the original dialogue is pretty straightforward. She's just saying, "Hey, why are you avoiding her?" Like, there was no need to insert a dated COVID joke in there. And don't get me wrong, I fucking love the Skate the Infinity dub, even though I know from an accuracy standpoint, it is extremely off from the original context and what certain dialogue actually meant. But anyway, I guess that was just a weird rant about Funimation just being a fucking weird company nowadays. But now back to number 1, the moment you've all been waiting for. Yu-Gi-Oh! Singapore dub. Now, we all have talked shit about the 4Kids dub of Yu-Gi-Oh! From censoring of monsters, character motivation, scenes, major character moments, and every single bit of violence. We all know the 4Kids dub is kind of awful by modern standards. However, there is a Yu-Gi-Oh! Dub that is so bad, it immediately makes the 4Kids dub look as holy as the Cowboy Bebop dub by comparison. Introducing the Singapore dub of Yu-Gi-Oh! Though, fair warning that this is actually partially lost media, so strap in your boots, folks, and get ready for some wacky fucking explanations. Now, Southeast Asia is no stranger to producing English dub. Dragon Ball had an apparently very bad English dub done over there as well, in which Piccolo was called Mr. Green. Just an example of the lovely quality we're going to get with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Dub, so it's not a total shock. Also, I think this dub might have been done by the same company as the Dragon Ball one. I don't know. Information on this was really difficult to find. I thought that maybe the dub was made prior to the 4Kids release, possibly to capitalize on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Boom in the early 2000s before anyone else could, but I can't seem to find any information on the date it was released, which is likely a contributing factor for why this was suddenly lost media over the years. It was produced by IMMG, a company known for localizing Japanese media to Singapore already, and MediaLink, who are another Southeast Asia company in charge of distributing specifically anime over to countries such as India, the Philippines, and more. Now, for the technical shit out of the way, let's talk about how bad the dub itself is. First of all, the acting is horrendous. There are a solid 8 voice actors voicing about 20 to 30 characters in the whole series, and since all of them sound like they were brought on from a high school fan project of Yu-Gi-Oh!, you can imagine how fucking disastrous this is. The quality for this anime is just horrendous, and the editing is awful for matching with the lip syncs. The scripting is okay. I'd say it's on par with maybe the first season of Free's English dubs in terms of scripting. Like, it does a decent job at translating the words of the original, but just like Free, the issue comes in that there's a lot of surfer dude talk in here for no reason other than I think that's what they thought cool kids talk like. It also does a really poor job of translating pretty much every card, and a really bad translation of like basic English sentences. Another thing is that Rio Bakura has a southern accent. I'm not sure why. Maybe the team misunderstood Rio's British accent in the 4Kids dub. Since the dub does actually use a large majority of 4Kids names, specifically Taya Gardner's name, whose original name is Anzuma Saki. I don't know who the hell was even funding this anime because no one really knew about its existence until well over a decade after it was put on VCDs, but damn, they must have been one sick son of a bitch because this dub made it all the way to the beginning of season 3, I think. I say I think because although Noah is credited, I don't see any credits for the big 5, so I'm just assuming here. Which, unfortunately, you can only really find clips online for the Singapore dub and a handful of episodes. Apparently, a large majority of episodes are lost media, likely due to poor preservation efforts because it's obviously terrible and there was a 4Kids dub already, so that was confusing for people in searches on top of copyright takedowns anyway by Konami and Toei for certain episodes and scenes. I don't know the full extent of what was lost, but I believe only 1 to 2 episodes of Duelist Kingdom were found, as well as mostly clips for Battle City. considering this thing has probably been mostly lost since the mid-2000s and is fucking terrible, I really doubt the full thing will be found, and if there was even more past season 3. The only positive thing I will say is that it's not censored, but that kind of doesn't mean anything when everyone's acting is worse than a 14-year-old edgy kid who just got a $10 headset on sale and wants to dub over his favorite scene from Naruto over the summer with his friends. Overall, I can't say it's the worst English dub I've heard because I know someday I'll find something worse, but fuck, was this absolutely terrible that right now it is the worst English dub I've ever seen. However, I'm pretty curious as to whether or not any of these anime sit high on your bad dub list, or what you think of English dubs at all. Considering I have a very positive view of dubs, I'd like to know what everyone else's stance is on English dubs, so as always, let me know down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching! If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you're new. If any of you would like to help support my channel in any possible way, my Ko-fi page is down below in the description, along with all of my social media. For any subscribers, new or old, who'd like to help with video ideas, or maybe just want to talk about anime or something, I have a fan server linked down below. See you next time!